it's not just going to a customer and say, hey, do you like this? They're always going to tell you yes to your face. But when you say, this is the cost, will you be a pilot? And they say, oh, I don't know. That should be telling. But as a product manager, if you hear that, that should be an alarm bell. And then that should help you inform that before you start building anything.
Welcome to LaunchPod, the show from LogRocket, where we sit down with top product and digital leaders. Today, we're talking with Sean Lorenz, Senior Director of Product at Altoida, where they're using augmented reality and AI to radically improve neurological diagnostics. In this episode, we talked about how to adapt product to find a viable market, the importance of matching product capabilities with both go-to-market timing and channel fit, and how to deal with a product that is ahead of market readiness. So here's our conversation with Sean Lorenz. Hey, Sean, great to have you on, man. Stoked to talk with you today.
Good to talk with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Holidays ended, and I think we're in a good spot now. How would your holidays go?
It was great. Other than having to drive with 2 kids, 2 animals to Ohio, it was pretty good.
I've done the Ohio drive. It's a long drive, and I did not do it 2 kids and 2 animals. So good on you. But cool. But so let's jump right in. Now, you've been doing AI since before AI was cool, right? Like
I guess that's true. Yeah.
You're old school AI. You did it. You're the hipster of AI. You got your PhD back in 2012 in AI and neural networks, and then wasted no time, founded Neurala, into Techstars. Like, you want to tell us a little bit about that? How'd that kind of go? How'd that happen?
Yeah, sure. A few professors and colleagues at Boston University, they had already had this idea to take, at the time, there's something called neuromorphic computing, which still is in its infancy. And there's a lot of interesting work being happened there where a different kind of compute chip, other than a CPU and a GPU, that uses how the brain computes with spikes to create chips on silicon. It's really fascinating stuff. And they wanted to create this company to basically be more biologically inspired neural networks as opposed to the more traditional artificial neural networks that are based on back propagation and honestly the backbone of what most of AI is built on today, right? And it was a very different approach. And after I finished my PhD, we applied to Techstars it was a NASA STTR grant that we had gotten. I literally copied and pasted. Don't tell Techstars that they'll hear. But
I think we're outside the statute limitations now.
That's right. I copied and pasted parts of the STTR we wrote and put it into a Techstars application, and they loved it. We were really doing something very different, building a navigation system for spatial navigation. Mars rover was the intent to essentially use a rat's hippocampus as the model to put it on a Roomba. And that's literally what we did. Roomba without the vacuum cleaner part. And that was the basis of our entire technological advantage.
Nice. So yeah, you guys didn't have big designs at all. It's some people want to build a new way to pay on the internet. And your company was focused on let's navigate Mars like a rat would.
With a rat. Yeah.
Yeah, let's put a Roomba and a rat on Mars. I would say
exactly
that those are big aspirations, but no, in reality, that's pretty awesome. That is the world-changing stuff that we all dreamed of being a part of when we were all joined startups. So what happened in the end? Like, where did we end up here?
Yeah, so with Neurala, Techstars really, I think, helped catapult the company. And during it, we were a technology in search of a problem, really. Like you were saying, we had this great idea, very big idea. And we were looking into, I don't know if you remember for a brief moment, there were those little sticks with an iPad on top doing telepresence robotics and these sort of things.
We had one at a company I was at.
So we were trying to make that smarter, but the market was really small and it was already dying. And honestly, it just was too little too late. And so we ended up getting a phase 2 for that NASA contract that was more focused on actually pivoted a little bit more into spatial navigation with drones. So automating drone collision avoidance, making sure that drones don't hit each other. So in that case, we used another mammalian brain model actually of how birds do collision avoidance using optic flow. Really fascinating stuff. And that has been the backbone of Neurala. It takes a while to get funding for something so out there and next level generation kind of tech that at the same time I was really getting interested in the Internet of Things. And I got lured into that world at LogMeIn. They had just acquired Patch Bay out of London and they turned it into Xively. building a really amazing Internet of Things platform. So I pivoted out of the early stage startup into a large enterprise SaaS kind of environment down in Boston.
That's what I was gonna say is it's funny because despite kind of a lack of there wasn't a successful outcome with Neurala, but it really launched you from a PhD kind of academia, which can be a little pigeonholing in tech sometimes,
Mhm.
into a very accomplished career and product where you've really done a lot of cool things. But you went over to LogMeIn, and I remember Xively because I had a good friend at the company at the time, and the CEO was talking big about it, and it was going to be the new future of not just LogMeIn, but the future of how things in your house operated.
That's
Um,
right.
you went there, and so what drew you into IoT? Like that seems a little bit far from let's put a Roomba with a rat's brain on Mars.
Actually, it's funny because Neurala is still doing great there, and they pivoted into more a visual inspection, which is all basically how do you have smarter inspection of manufacturing floor. And honestly, I feel like that was all robotics. I just see it as sensors. It's all sensors.
Mhm,
And so the Internet of Things, in my mind, is just an extension of what we're learning in neural networks at our program at Boston University is how do you take a lot of sensor inputs and process it cognitively
mhm.
to create an output, right?
Yeah.
And so at LogMeIn, I saw the future of saying, look, all these different smart devices are just collecting sensor data, different modalities.
Mhm,
How do you stitch all that together? At Neurala, it was robots, but at LogMeIn, it was anything temperature, humidity. We were looking at industries across all kinds of things, building smarter diapers. A sensor in diapers, that was an actual pitch. I saw the value of moving
mhm,
from not just one kind of sensor, but how do you combine all these different
mhm.
sensors together and not just connect it, but how do you actually analyze it and then turn that into actionable intelligence and build a whole platform?
Let's back up a little bit because I find your kind of general path really intriguing because you, as much as you got the PhD in AI, but you did not start in the hard sciences. I think you originally got your undergrad in philosophy. Is that
Mhm.
right?
That's right.
With yeah, and I think we talked earlier, and this one kind of killed me because a little bit. I take a little offense here, but not much. Basically, I think your take on that was it set you up to either deliver pizzas or work in marketing. So I'm gonna try not to take that one too personal.
Don't take offense.
But I mean, I love
Hey, I was in
pizzas.
marketing for a while and I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing. We all try. One day, I hope to get out. But it seems like you made it through, and you proceeded, and you then went from marketing to you proceed to help found the Independent Film Festival of Boston. Like, what is your life here? I think this is its 22nd year going into now. So
Yeah.
that's amazing. I mean, so you get through your art phase, you go and get your PhD in AI, you help found Neurala, and then you end up at Xively. Now, if I remember correctly, the team over at LogMeIn talked, was really excited about Xively. It was going to be the future. I don't think it worked out that way, but maybe walk us through what went on over there and how it came up and ultimately where it went.
So Xively was a really fascinating case study in finding out how to build a platform and knowing how much marketing at the time I was on more the product marketing side. It was a
Mhm,
little bit of strategy, talking back and forth between product management and product marketing. But at that point, everything was just straight connection. How can you use MQTT and these different kind of protocols to just connect something to a little Raspberry Pi or some sort of device and productize it?
mhm,
And Xively saw we were really trying to push the whole thing of we said it was like connect, manage, engage, I think was our what we came up with. And we wanted to get ahead of any competitors by saying, look, yeah, we can do the whole thing.
mhm,
Everything from not just connecting to the device and partnering up with TI and these different boards, but how can we take that further and say, how do you productize this? What's the value of your product? So honestly, we were helping them build business plans for their connected device to try to get them to buy ours. But then we started really talking up, well, yeah, we can do all the analysis and we're going to have this big, full, holistic platform. And yes, I think we were going to get there, but really we needed to get the connection part locked in. But
mhm.
just saying, yeah, we have MQTT to connect wasn't as sexy as saying, yeah, we're going to do AI on your connected windmill, right? I think that's where there was a little bit of a disconnect as we got out. The marketing message was a couple years ahead of where the product actually was at the time. So I think that was the part. of why we didn't get as large at LogMeIn with Xively as we could have.
Yeah, it's always that needle to thread, right? You stay too far behind, you sell
Yeah,
behind your tech, and someone's going to out innovate you, or you're always going to have the competitor who's a little bit more pushing boundaries, and everyone kind of looks at them as the market leader in tech. You get too far over your tips, and no one wants the thing you have. They want what you're talking about, which is 5 years out if you're doing it too
yeah.
far. And that's the danger.
And as a product lead, I think it's really important to really work closely with your marketing and sales team to say, look, this is where we're at, but helping them see the near term roadmap and
Mhm.
say, I think it's okay to sell a little bit of vision and say, look, okay, this is great. We have this now, but let's get a contract or some NDA or something in place where we will help you see that this is the next year coming so that it keeps them almost hooked. But
Yeah,
at that point, you're saying this is the reality. We really hope to get to this within the time frame of your contract.
right. It's almost two separate sales processes. You have to sell
That's
them
right.
on, we can solve this need of yours right now, and here's where how we are going to understand and solve your future problems as well. But they're
That's
two
right.
separate things. If you just do the second one, good luck. You'll always be having a customer who's ready to sign in 2 years.
Exactly. That's
And
exactly
then,
right.
so Xively, you kind of went through a great case study, right? And you need to match up timing with how you sell and how you go. But then you continued on your IoT play to a company called Center, is it?
Yeah, that's right.
And explain what Center does, please, because I think it's a little less. I didn't know about this one beforehand.
So Center was out of LogMe, and I really wanted to get back to my mix of neuroscience and
Mhm,
AI roots and wanted to leverage smart home devices, off the shelf devices,
mhm,
to put that together with that promise of AI that I was hoping we would eventually get to with Xively for a specific use case, right? I wanted to solve a specific problem, not be a horizontal platform. And so with Center, what we were trying to do, and actually what we started to create, was the ability to take remote passive sensing of location monitoring sensors as well as bed mat 8, all these new kind of sensor devices, smart home devices were just coming on the market, had early beta prototypes. And so we were working with them to say, hey, give us your early access to your APIs. And hopefully, if we can sell this, you're going to sell this as well, right? If people buy ours, they're going to buy your bed connected mat or your smart things, motion sensors, right? We
mhm,
packaged it up and we were trying to find solutions for remote patient monitoring for seniors in particular. We could accurately tell urinary tract infections just by putting a sensor in your bedroom and connected to your bathroom to say,
wow.
okay, at what time did you get up at night? What what were your patterns like? What was your sleep like? There's all these kind of triggers that could also be used for delirium and signs of dementia. So that was really the thinking. And I was speaking at dozens of conferences at the
Mhm,
time, digital health startup to watch. But when we were going up for fundraising, no one wanted to be a lead because of product market fit. It's okay, technology in search of a problem again. And they said, look, this is a great idea, but who's going to pay, right? You're not going to, there's no CPT codes at the time in 2014, 15 for remote patient monitoring. Obviously, with COVID, a lot of that changed. It's a different
right.
story. We are too ahead of the curve, and there was no payment model.
Can
You
you
know,
just explain real quick for people maybe what CPT codes
oh,
are as
sorry.
well, please? Yeah.
Yeah, so in the healthcare system, you have fee for service codes. So every
Mhm,
time you go to a doctor or anytime you interact with your healthcare system, it's a code. It's a reimbursement code that says, hey, you get $200 for every annual wellness visit, or
mhm,
every visit for this kind of chronic care condition, you get $100, right? And so a lot of the software as a medical device world is built around trying to find those codes that you can attach to get a piece of
mhm,
that when you sell to a certain part of the healthcare system. Now, obviously, the future is more value based care, which is not using those CPT codes. Everything there is about preventative care. But the US healthcare system has been really slow to adopt that in full force. So, trying to build a digital health startup around a value based care model, it's tough. You have to have enough money in the bank and a value proposition that is airtight to really handle that and leverage and manage that storm of if you have to go for FDA clearance, which could take years to,
yeah.
to prove that out.
I feel like there are so many lessons to be taken from this few year period of your experience here, where
Mhm.
at Center, you talked about you were out and talking at all the conferences and getting a lot of attention and traction. And I think no matter what industry you've been in, we've all seen that competitor or maybe that vendor that we know, and you're just looking at them going, they're killing it. Why can't I do that? And we all get maybe a little jealous of it. And then what you don't
Mhm.
know behind the scenes is there's so much more to having a successful business than just product market fit, right? You need channel market fit. The market needs
Mhm.
to be there. You need to have the need lined up with not just the need in the product, but with also how does someone buy this thing?
Right.
And the world is sloppy with the people and the companies that have come and made a lot of noise and had great PR or had a, in your guys' case, a great product that really did something valuable, but just not the means to monetize it because the
Monetize,
channel
yeah.
to go to market just hasn't caught up. And then similarly, if you look back to Xively, it's a great product and a great need that was going to, do stuff, but if you don't, how you go to market matters as much as the product, right? You need to
That's
message
right.
correctly. And,
Yeah.
and that's where you need to have the discipline around messaging and the discipline around not just I have the right product, but I have the right channel to go to market. And these are all the components that build a solid, sustaining business. But it's so easy
And
to
I
look at some of these companies and go, I wish I had that thing. And you never know what's going on behind the scenes.
exactly, you don't, and so it is actually something I've definitely learned out of Center is how much of this you don't know what's under the books. You don't know how much is just marketing versus actual, revenue generation. And that's really what matters when you're running a business. And I think that was the biggest thing I learned out of both Xively and a bunch of my early startups that I started in my career was trying to do more homework up front in
Mhm.
terms of, okay, yes, there might be a really cool technology we can apply. There might be product market fit, but you have to have that match to your point with all the
Mhm.
other components. And is there a business model? And it's not just going to a customer and say, hey, do you like this? They're always going to tell you yes to your face. But when you say, all right, this is the cost. Will you be a pilot? And they say, oh, I don't know, that should be telling. But as a product manager, if you hear that should be an alarm bell, and then you ask them, okay, what gets you over that hurdle? And if so, that's great. If not, why? And then that should help you inform that before you start building anything. And that's where I think we went wrong with Center is we built out this thing first, and then we said, hey, you want it? Instead of doing the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's so key is a lot of people are going to say yes. People are nice, but also it does sound like a good idea no matter what. But once you get into the
Right.
messiness of, okay, I do want, but how am I going to bill it? How am I going to pay for my subscription of your thing that you've built? And then once you do that, how do you get 10 more, 20 more, 50 more people to do that? It's,
Mhm.
you need all that compelling reason that it's all going to work.
And in healthcare, especially with the healthcare industry,
It
y-
takes
y-
so long.
it takes so long, and they don't want your fancy app or your
Right.
fancy portal, right? What they want is just one field that gets updated in their EHR system, right? Is
Hmm.
if you can show that you can seamlessly integrate with Epic or Cerner or one of these and say, yeah, we see your diabetes management platform. It's a little device. This works really well. And oh, by the way, it automatically hooks right into your Epic
Hmm.
system and you don't have to worry about it. And we automate the billing process. Boom. Then you start to have a conversation.
Exactly. And then, but there is a light at the end of this tunnel. Moved on from Center and ended up at Formlabs, another great Boston company, really pushing the bounds of 3D printing.
Mm.
And this, I feel like, is just that great case study of product meets need, meets the right go to market channel, and things went really well there to a point where I think you told me at one point, and you're gonna have to tell the story better, where you guys were at a conference and literally had to go get like one of those square devices to plug into your phone so you could sell stuff there because there was so much demand.
Yeah, our events team came back from, I think it was like they did so many conferences. They came back from a dental conference. This was the early days of their dental
Mhm.
market. They had a couple resins that were fit for dentists and went to this one, and they had dentists just coming up to them saying, I love it. Can I buy it? And they're like, wait, what? They weren't prepared. And so, yeah, they had to go out, send somebody out to get Stripe or one of those. and yeah, Square. And so they could swipe credit cards and they were selling them right there on the floor at a conference. I've never seen anything like that before. And that to me shows you they're onto something. And so, really, that following year, we ramped up our dental resin market just by leaps and bounds. It was just a great option for product market fit. It just kept growing and growing, into dentures and other types of items where dentistry is a perfect example of where if you can do it quickly and cheaply and safely to customize your teeth. Everybody's mouth is different. Earbuds, teeth, sunglasses, they were perfect use cases and people wanted them, especially in dentistry. So I think 3D printing has revolutionized the dentistry industry.
It seems like that is one where it was just an overnight success, but I'm sure it was not that easy. What was the work that went into kind of getting you there, right? What was the 10 years behind becoming an overnight success kind of thing? How did you guys identify that market and get in there and figure out what it needed and make sure you had the right thing at the right time with the right channel?
With Formlabs, they had already been just absolutely crushing it in more the prosumer market. And they had started already when I got there a little bit the dental, but really it was just listening to the dentists in that
Mhm.
market as well as in the healthcare market in general. That was another new field. We were really trying to go from a prosumer kind of market into more straight B2B
Right.
applications. We were looking at partnering with SAP for manufacturing, and that ended up being a new industry where we were looking at jigs and fixtures and trying to figure out where in healthcare and hospitals at Northwell in Long Island. I went out, we created this automated system where you could have 8 Formlab 3D printers printing parts right there
Mhm.
and give them up to a surgeon right before the surgery or after the surgery. Stuff like that just was impossible before. So we just literally just listened to our users in these more business use cases and said, "What do you need?" And we just watched them. That I think
Yeah.
a good product person goes out into the field, and I went to factories, I went to hospitals, I went to dentist office and said, and we just figured it out and said, okay, let's create more resins that
Right.
have different applications with different properties they needed. So it actually kind of was overnight. It was really amazing.
But that's the right way where you did the work of building the machines, having the use case, you understood your users, and as you rolled out resins and all that kind of things, you knew that you knew the demand was there because people were trying to buy it from you when you didn't even have a means to take payment. You
Hmm.
knew that you had the channel to go, you weren't getting in the way of some weird billing procedures or anything like that. And that's
Right.
where everything the skids are greased, for lack of a better term, in that
Yeah,
case.
exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect analogy.
So cool. And now you're at Altoida, which I do love your just overall thesis. It seems like with your career of let's take this thing we all know as AI and let's continue to try to improve healthcare outcomes with it because it's such a
Mhm.
meaningful place where we can make a lot of improvements. And fundamentally, a lot of the stuff hasn't changed that much in a long time. So it's good to see
Mhm.
kind of people focus on how do we move this world forward in a way that is probably a little bit slower. So good to have dedicated
A
people
lot
on it. But
slower.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so at Altoida, I mean, a few of the things you mentioned to me just before we jumped on this were mind-boggling in how you were doing it. Like 10-minute diagnostics to predict dementia, stuff you're doing that people can do at home that used to have to go do, I think, like hours long tests to get the same results.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the problem with the neurology world is neuropsychological exams. It could take, especially for a neurology visit, 9 months to a year is oftentimes the case to get a appointment for dementia screening. And
Mhm.
those are typically 3 to 4 hour neuropsychological batteries and exams. And if you're a 70-year-old person who might already be showing signs of dementia, waiting a year is just going to be too late. Also, you're not getting their baseline when you have to have them come out and do 3 to 4 hours of exhaustive examination. It's just not the way to do things. Altoida really is a game changer and saying, okay, how can we put this just on this. And we were able to do it at home as well as in an office where it's just a bunch of tasks where we have you tap things, we have you draw circles,
Mhm.
and then we use the augmented reality toolkit on the Apple iPad to have them place virtual objects in a room.
Mhm.
And then we ask them where those objects were. So we can look at all the accelerometer data. We can look at all these different types of data native on the device, and we just throw it into a machine learning algorithm. And then we get ground truth, because
Mhm.
that's the key, is the amount of data you can amass and compare it to ground truth. So a lot of money goes into these kind of healthcare studies where you have to validate, okay, they take a 10-minute assessment, which that's the easy part. The hard part is honestly getting all the ground truth to say, okay, do they have mild cognitive impairment? We have to look at getting an MRI scan, get their
Mhm.
blood drawn, do the neuropsych test that exists, and then say, okay, how confident are we that we predicted this correctly? And that's why a lot of healthcare can't break things fast and break it and move fast kind of mentality, is because these are people's lives. And you
Yeah.
have to make sure you're extremely careful when you're getting these sensitivity specificity curves and scores to predict whether someone's lives might be changed by a one that says you have a high likelihood of dementia.
It's one thing if you move fast and break someone's
Yeah.
ability to post on social media. It's another
Or
thing
their
if you move
Netflix
fast
recommendation, right?
and break someone's sense of, am I going to have cognitive impairment for the rest of my life, and do I need to prepare for this life-changing thing? A
And
little bit different weight.
yeah, a little different. And the nice thing is, once you have this very personalized set of scores and cognitive subdomain scores, you can build treatment plans
Mhm.
that are tailored to that. And that's where I see the future of AI in medicine going. It's early intervention through diagnosis into treatment. And that's the part that I think is still early, but personalized treatment across cardiology, mammography, we're seeing it happen, neurology, all the different parts within the healthcare system. When we can start tailoring custom treatments instead of getting a 10 pages of, okay, go home with this generic set of instructions that nobody reads. No, we should be able to go home with a personalized treatment plan based on exactly your kind of thumbprint. So that's where I see things going.
To the
And
point you made,
yeah.
though, it's not just the tailoring, it's getting it way ahead of when we can do it now and historically. It's we know with dementia, early treatment and early kind of intervention is a huge lever to helping this person for the rest of their life. But AI, it seems like, has the capability to open our ability to do that in many cases. There's so much data in the world that is obscured by just the fact that it's life, and there's just so much going on. And yes, if you had a sensor on you and all these things all the time and enough computational power to parse it, we could probably
Mhm.
find this early stuff out for everyone. But until now, there just wasn't, you would need your own clinician walking around with you 24/7.
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
even in much less rather important aspects, right? Like it's the same way I look at what we're doing here at LogRocket, and it's the same thing
Mhm.
where using AI to monitor digital experiences in real time, and we're able to flag to you something is going wrong. You're an e-commerce company, something's going wrong in your checkout flow after it happens to 5 or 6 people, not after you've lost $300,000.
Mm.
And yes, is that less important than helping someone stave off dementia? Yeah, I will say yes, absolutely, it's less important than that. But right, it's all in the where it fits in people's lives.
I think it's all important across all
Yeah.
industries. I'm a big believer in AI for good. And to me, if it's a lot of it is just anomaly detection. There's things that the human eye cannot detect in all this data, right? So whether it's looking at anomalies and security threats or
Mhm.
flows in your app that are being or that go down, or healthcare, or on a manufacturing line, if you can detect it earlier, it makes everybody's lives better. Not just you're making more money because you reduce churn and spend on if a part breaks in your factory or your logistics flow, or someone's life. So I think it's really exciting to see all these companies starting to build AI for good, as well as
Right.
AI that actually solves a business problem.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we're going to see from AI is just the time to awareness, the time to answer, the time to knowledge is just going to decrease so
Mm.
much no matter where it's applied, which is a really cool, I think, just general thesis of it. And the other good news about Altoida is it actually works with pharmaceutical companies, the health companies, and the billing systems. And all these lessons about go to market channel fit seem to have lined up very well here.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Altoida, we've been working with some amazing pharmaceutical clinical trials showing great evidence for them to progress certain patients into a certain drug if they fit or not. And it's just also exponentially increasing with protein folding and understanding of what kind of combinations of drugs to build based on that. And then all the way through, I was mentioning treatment, it's transforming primary care doctors, they're like a generalist and they have to be just good enough at everything to point you in the right direction. Now we can actually give you a POCUS, which is just basically a little point of care ultrasound on your heart if they see any issues. And they can do a quick scan with that now to predict within a pretty high accuracy if you might have heart failure with preserved ejection fraction or something like that, where you can say, look, I don't know, I'm not a cardiologist, but hey, I'm going to refer you now because I saw something we wouldn't have seen until 3 or 4 years. And then you could put them on the drug that now exists for that didn't exist a few years ago. So it's really fascinating to see this starting to happen.
I love the I'm not a cardiologist, but you should see a cardiologist. And now we know this years in advance of where we would have historically known it.
It's like
Yeah.
shunting off to the right person, right? And that's the primary care doctor is gonna be doing. Yeah, I think the primary care doctor is going to be that kind of, central node to really help direct you. It's like your orchestrator to put you into the right path.
Yeah. Now, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't talk about your consultancy that you do, your consulting that you do, and your mentoring that you do also, because I think you picked one of the my favorite names I've ever seen for a kind of one person consulting company. It's called the Seangularity,
Uh,
which I just love. But you mentor and you work with and you consult with kind of startups around the Boston area. So I got to ask, what are some cool use cases for AI that you've seen from these kind of up and comers?
Yeah, I love mentoring young startups. Coming through Techstars myself, it was such an amazing experience. It's where I learned from some amazing people what product management even is, what
Mhm.
agile methodology is, how do we do it. And it was like an MBA in 4 months, and it was just so impactful in my life at that time. And so I love to give back, E for All, as well as Techstars. And this group that just graduated from Techstars Boston, I was mentoring this one startup called Vitel, looking at women's health, and they have this amazing data-driven platform for perimenopause and
Mhm.
detection, and all that goes into the changes in women's lives at that time in their life is critical. And for so long, women's health has not been really discussed, and now there's this flood of amazing new startups coming out that are addressing some really amazing applications like perimenopause, which I think we're going to see a lot of change in that. So I'm really excited about what Roma and her team, she's a fantastic entrepreneur, so what they're going to do. There's some Praxis Pro is one of my favorites. They're doing AI powered sales training for regulated industries like pharma. There's Radicate, again, another healthcare one where they're creating synthetic PET images from CT scans, which is just bonkers.
That's insane.
Yeah. So there's all these amazing, very specific industry solutions that are coming out. And there people I think are less trying to build a $20 billion unicorn. And they're saying, look, we can make a really good business that could still generate a lot of money by focusing on a real problem. Again, you mentioned this earlier, that solves a real problem with AI.
Yeah, and it's also great to see that not all AI companies are leading us towards Terminators and liquid robots, but rather
Yeah.
let's solve healthcare problems sooner, faster, better. Let's make it cheaper probably as well, because if you're doing it earlier, that's going to really help. Sean, I don't want to take up your whole day here. I could talk about all this stuff I think for probably hours between healthcare and we didn't even touch on music, which we're gonna
I
have to
know.
connect separately. But I do want to make sure I don't take your whole day. If people are looking for you, obviously I know you're on TopTal for your consulting practice for the Seangularity, so people should definitely check you out there. Are you on LinkedIn? Is that a good, if people want
Yeah,
to ask you follow-on
absolutely.
questions? All
Yep.
right.
I'm on LinkedIn, so just look me up.
Awesome. Sean, it was fantastic having you on. This is super interesting. Love hearing how one of the early hipsters of AI have progressed through their whole career here. And
I
I
might
think
have
there's
to put
still so
that
much
on
more to
my
go.
LinkedIn.
I appreciate you coming on, man. It was great chat, and let's definitely stay in touch. I want to talk about music later.
Absolutely. Happy
Okay.
2025.
You too.